When something goes wrong, how often have you said to yourself, I knew I should have done that, or I knew I should have said that, or I knew I should have gone there, or the opposite, I knew I shouldn't have done that, or gone there, or said that. We all have intuition. The only question is whether or not we listen to it. I'm Ravi Tangri, and this is SOULGineering your life and work. This is all about how do you bring more heart and soul into your life, into your work, into everything that you do. And today we're going to dive into intuition, how to actually access it and how to learn to trust it in, believe it or not, a scientific way. Now, we've all had those gut feelings or that bad feeling about I shouldn't do this, I shouldn't do that, I shouldn't say this, and then we do it anyway. Or that I should do this or that, and then we don't. And then things blow up in our face and we say that, I knew I shouldn't have said that. The trouble is we don't trust it because, let's face it, we live in a left brain world where you've got to have rationale, you've got to have logic, you've got to have everything backing it up. And this just seems too woo-woo, too abstract, too airy-fairy to really pay attention to. It's like dreaming of all these wonderful mythical lands of fairies and dragons. This is not real. Well, what I'm going to talk about today is how you can learn to access it, and believe it or not, how you can learn to trust it in a very scientific way. I was a scientist in my first career, and I am still very scientific. I need to prove to myself that things work. And science doesn't always mean that you show how it works. It can also show causation or correlation, that when you do this, this happens. So you can show the effectiveness of intuition, even if you don't understand where it comes from. Now, I've explored this most of my life, but I've had some really telling times where the intuition has jumped up very, very clearly, even back when I didn't really understand this stuff. In my 20s, I traveled to India a few times. I'd never lived there, but I have some relatives. And in my early 20s, I was living in Winnipeg, and I was thinking, hey, let's take a trip out. I had made my first trip a few years ago with my dad. I thought, let's go. I knew my relatives now, and let's travel there. And there was another friend of mine in the same city who I didn't know well, but who was planning on going there. He was a friend of a friend. And we chatted and said, look, why don't we travel together? We will go our separate ways, and then we'll come back and travel back together. It sounds like fun. So we booked our trip. But then all of a sudden, my spider sense went off. And even back then, when I didn't really understand this was so intense, so powerful. It was like, do not pass go, do not collect $200. You have to go earlier. And so I changed my flight, and I moved it 3 weeks earlier, and I came back the day I was scheduled to leave. And this friend of mine, when I told him what I'd done, he was asking why, and I couldn't give him a reason. It's like, I don't know. And he just kind of looked at me strange, like, you are weird, but let's go with it. Anyway, I went off there, had a great trip, did all sorts of stuff, and I came back, and I thought maybe I'd run into that friend of mine because he was getting on the plane, I was getting off. But of course, with customs, that didn't happen. And so I continued on my way home. Then the next day, I found out that the Air India flight, which I was originally booked on, was blown up over the ocean. So when things happen like that, you tend to learn to trust your intuition. It's literally saved my life like that a few times. Now, it doesn't have to be that extreme. And what you can do is actually find a way to prove to yourself whether or not you can trust it. In fact, I do not recommend you go out and blindly trust your intuition in any way, shape, or form. This is a method I want to give you to be able to test it, evaluate it, and then you can make the decision for yourself whether you trust it or not, or in what context. And it's a way to really see the efficacy of it. So it's a simple process. And what you do is you keep a logbook or a journal that's specifically dedicated to this. And in that, you write down all the decisions that come to you in your life, big, small. And there's 4 things that you record for each one. You can give each one a page if you want. Or if it's a smaller decision, you can give it a little less space. You write down what the decision is, what your gut or your intuition says to do, and what you did, whether you followed the intuition or you didn't. And then you write down what happened. Now, if it is a minor decision like where to go to lunch, you can probably complete that entry that day. If it's a bigger decision like buying a car, buying a house, getting a new job, moving to a different city, it may take a while to put the last entry in about what happened and what were the impacts of that. And particularly when you write down what happened, what you want to do is note down the things that happened that you could not have anticipated. What were things that occurred that once you took that step that came totally out of the blue, for good, for bad, whatever. And so you keep this journal. This is what I work with a lot of my coaching clients who are working on how does intuition work? How does it integrate into everyday life, into practical business life? I mean, there's research that actually shows that the most effective leaders, what they do is they don't realize they're doing this, but unconsciously they sit back and they run all the what if scenarios in their head. And then they go with the one that feels right to them. There's a lot of research that shows that buying decisions are made on emotional bases, on things that feel right. And then you rationalize it. Even corporate buying decisions, there's research that shows that those are based on individual or organizational values, and then you find the data to rationalize it. But the root of all of these decisions is that intuition, that feeling that's there, that this is what I should do. So what this is going to do is it's going to present you with a record instead of just incidental memory of all these times where you remember, yeah, I knew I shouldn't have done that, but I did anyway, and things blew up in my face. You actually keep this logbook, and it may take months, even longer. But what you will develop is a record of what happened when you followed your intuition, what happened when you didn't. And what I found for myself was it was black and white. Forget 50 Shades of Gray. There was not even one shade. It was pure black and white. Every time I followed my intuition, even if it was the stupidest, craziest, most idiotic thing to do to most people, and even if logic dictated I do something else, it somehow worked out. And every time I ignored it, even if I was doing the most rational thing, something happened I couldn't have anticipated that blew up in my face. I remember one instant, for example, where I had to get this report ready for a client, and I just couldn't get myself going. And finally, I realized, okay, something in me is saying, no, don't do this. And even though I had a meeting the next day with a client, I put it aside. Well, the next morning, I get an email from the client saying, look, can we postpone the meeting until next week? And okay, fine, no problem. And in that week, new data came out that completely changed what I presented them. When it was time to make the report for that updated meeting, I had no problem. But my gut was saying, this is not the time to do this. And somehow it worked out. So when you're keeping these records, what you do is you keep these records, review every once in a while, and start to see if something's happening, some pattern there. Most of the clients that I work with this find that there's a very clear pattern that happens where when they follow the intuition, it works out. When they don't, it blows up in their face. But I suggest you prove it to yourself whether or not you can trust it. This is a very scientific process to prove whether you can trust this. Something to think about when you are looking at the intuition, you can start to discriminate in a number of ways and keep notes about this if you want in the journal. I think there's two types of intuition that we have. One is your unconscious mind takes in all sorts of data and it finds ways to put those together to find connections that your conscious mind is not aware of. So there's experience, knowing that comes with experience that gives you a sense of this is what to do. So that is just your unconscious mind finding the patterns, finding the way through based on experience. And I trust that. The other type of experience is something beyond that. You know, there's no way that my unconscious mind could have known that that plane was going to blow up. But there was some sort of information that came to me that I chose to be open to, even though I didn't understand all of this back then. That changed my life. Well, gave me my life. So start to notice, if you can start to get a sense of what's there. Another thing that you can look at to discriminate, there seem to be different types of intuition. Some people have a gut feeling. Some people feel that quiet voice from their heart. You know, there's research from the Heart Math Institute and different universities that has shown that we have brains in our heart, in our belly, that are ways where we can actually connect with information. So when you jot things down about what your intuition or gut says in the journal, write down, where did you feel it? Was it in the gut? Was it just a feeling in your body, in your chest, in your heart that said, go this way, go that way, do this, do that, don't do that, say this, don't say that. Just notice where it comes from. All the details that you can provide will help you understand the flavors of your own intuition and what each means. And this is a simple thing. You can do this at the end of every day. Was there something that happened and what happened there? You know, just be aware through the day that, oh, this is a decision. Is there a feeling that I have to go one way or the other? And then what did you do? Jot it down. What happened? Were there things that happened that you could never have anticipated? And you will start to see patterns and prove to yourself whether this works or not. And what I like you to do is if you start finding things, please drop me a note, drop me a line, and let me know what you discover with this. Very simple method. I believe in simplicity. And here's the other thing that's tricky with this. When you follow your intuition, there are other ways it may feel wrong. You may feel guilty. You may feel bad about what's going to happen to someone that you can't help them, that you're not there to help them. You may feel that it's the wrong thing to do, or you should do something differently. Those are different challenges to overcome. What I have found is that by following my intuition, somehow it does work out in the end for the best for all concerned. I've proven it to myself, not just those times it saved my life, but through all the even tiny details so that I will take a blind leap of faith on what my intuition says, even though there may be repercussions, there may be things where I see that it's going to have negative effects, because I've learned that there's more for everyone concerned if I listen to my intuition, if I follow it forward. But I've proven it to myself. I'm not asking you to do that, and you should not, based on me or anyone else, jump into trusting your intuition. This is a way that you can learn and make the decision for yourself whether you trust it or not. Now, one final thing, there is one big barrier to listening to your intuition, and I am going to show you how to dissolve that. I'm going to give you a resource to dissolve that in just a moment. Check it out, check it out. Are you ready for this? Probably the biggest barrier to actually listening to your intuition and allowing yourself to follow it is your own self-criticism, your self-judgment, that monkey mind, that head chatter that goes on in your head. It looks for all the things that could go wrong, and it tries to find all the reasons to not listen to that. I've found a Jedi mind trick that allows you to shut that monkey mind off just like that. It's gone completely when you flip the switch. If you'd like to find out how to do that, it's a little more than I can show you in this podcast, but I've got a free e-course that's available for you. Just go to silenceselftalk.com and you will learn how to do it. All it takes is a few minutes a day, scattered through the day. So a minute here, a minute there, 4 or 5 times during the day. And after about a week, you'll be able to do it at command. And once you silence that noisy voice in your head, you will be much better able to listen to your intuition. If this was useful to you, I'd really appreciate it if you could share this with your friends on socials. Would love to see some reviews on wherever you listen to podcasts. Have yourself an amazing day, and we will see you next week. I got the